Hi, welcome to Into the Current, episode 5, featuring Tami B, the creator of Dosed, the Cannabis Culinary Infusion Calculator app for phones and other digital devices, and Chef Trice, strategic partner and head chef and advocate for Dosed. I'm Eric Rogers, co-founder of Vertical River, and I'll be your host today. Into the Current is focused on the people, organizations, and brands who are looking ahead to see what's coming and adapting by leveraging creativity and technology to grow their business. Our guests today are riding the current of the early stages of mainstream cannabis industry growth and acceptance, and combining modern technology with one of the world's oldest and most important crafts, cooking, to nourish, heal, and make people feel good. I've known that Tami, Trice, and the Dosed crew have been cooking this up for a while now, and I've been looking forward to getting deep on the concept of a culinary cannabis infusion app. So let's jump in. Hey, Tami and Trice, thanks a lot for joining us today. Welcome to Into the Current. I hope you're both doing well.
I'm great. Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Excellent. We've been starting our interviews with COVID-19 questions primarily since we started this, and we're in the midst of a pandemic. But I want to wait a bit to get into that. I really want to start off by talking about the cannabis space, as some business people and investors like to call it. Because it's really topical for one, and I think a lot of people don't really understand it, honestly. So where did the idea for the Dosed app come from?
Well, the idea started when Trice and I went to Denver, Colorado. We went out to Denver, Colorado with the intention to learn how to infuse with cannabis. My mom she has fibromyalgia, and she had a really hard time being able to afford the therapeutic dose that she needed of CBD. So I thought, why not go out and learn a little bit about infusion and learn a little bit about how to be able to work with the plant to be able to see if I can help her in a more cost-effective way. Trice, obviously, she brought her along. I consider Trice my daughter, and I brought Trice along because of her culinary skills, but not only because of that. We needed a trip together and a little bit of time to spend together, and what a beautiful place to go, Colorado. And I knew that would be a fantastic spot for us to be able to learn what we came to do, and that was to learn how to infuse. I'm no Betty Crocker, so I brought Trice along to make sure that I learned all of the techniques properly, and she was there to be able to obviously make it a fantastic trip. And to be honest with you, how it all kind of came to be was two great minds standing in an alleyway, kind of so excited about that. We just learned how to be able to infuse with cannabis, but standing in an alleyway and just kind of realizing how wonderful it would be if we could find a way to be able to have people at home and people who are interested in working with cannabis to be able to infuse in a simple, straightforward way and be able to not have to necessarily do all the math that was required. During our opportunity to be there, and we were learning about infusing with cannabis, during the process, the chef who was teaching us, Chef Royalty, he slowed down to make sure everybody understood the mathematical side of being able to understand the infusion process. And at that moment, Trice kind of turned around and looked at me with her big eyes, was like, yo, did you get that? And when she did it, it was kind of like the moment where I was like, yeah, I got it. But it kind of was that light switch, if you will, as far as like, oh, there might be an issue here or a problem here that I might be able to solve. And so that kind of was where the brainstorming, where the crazy problem-solving techniques that kind of came in for me. Because after we left, she said, so you're going to build me a spreadsheet, right? So she could make sure that she was infusing properly. And I said, I think I got a better idea. So that's kind of how Dosed was started.
Okay, well, I think that sounds really good all around. Yeah, I mean, we work in spreadsheets, right? And that's just kind of a necessary evil of business. Spreadsheets don't sound like a fun way to do culinary infusions to me. So, the app, yeah, I love the aha moment in the alleyway too. That's a really cool story. I think a lot of people have those moments, right? Where you're like, I have this great idea. We should do this. We should make an app for culinary cannabis infusions. But that's, from the idea moment to where you're at now, where you have an app on the app stores, various app stores, and it's really, really well designed. So kudos for that. I love the user interface. how did you go from the idea to the actual finished product of the app?
Well, neither one of us write code. So I started basically just from a business perspective and just sat down and did a lot of research on, first of all, what was out in the space to see exactly what was available for the, for chefs and for at-home cooks that are cooking with cannabis. And there wasn't a lot out there. And what was out there was super complicated and very difficult to understand and use. And knowing who we're going to be catering to, and that's, try to make it simple and straightforward. I just kind of took it from that perspective. So we did some research. I did reach out and tried. I worked with a patent attorney group, if you will, to see if it was something that we could, patent to somewhat protect. But after we found out that it wasn't something that we were going to be able to protect necessarily through a patent, we just decided to make it the best damn app we could. So what we did at that point is I reached out to a couple people to find an app developer because I wasn't comfortable with who I initially went through as far as to do some of the research. And luckily I found a guy, Sierra Space Agency, which is out of Lake Tahoe. He was from a local contact who gave me his name, and his team out there is just an amazing set of designers and engineers who just did a great job with creating the app and working with us and making it fun.
Very good. Yeah, I was definitely interested in hearing where you found the development team in Lake Tahoe. Doesn't surprise me. Incredible place.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. He's actually originally from Georgia, but he moved to Lake Tahoe, and it all came together just beautifully. Yes.
Spent a lot of time in Lake Tahoe, skiing primarily, but also up there in the summer. Beautiful place.
I'm hoping to go and visit the app developers.
You should, for sure. You too, Trice. Need to get out to Tahoe. How much did the concept evolve from when you started developing it? I mean, did it go like you thought it was going to go? Was there a lot of evolution? What was that process like?
The main calculation part stayed the same. The calculation part really didn't change because that was thought through from the jump. We knew that it had to be a 1, 2, 3 approach to make it simple for people to understand at home. So that part didn't change. What really actually evolved was the content and everything below the calculations. That's what really evolved when I started to look at it as far as from a monetization standpoint, as far as how to really make sure that this business model was something that we were going to be able to continue and be able to turn it into a business and not just a fantastic app for people to use. That's where it started to evolve, and we started to kind of see how we were going to really be able to also work with other people in this space, other chefs and edible companies, and also just other cooking companies who may want to be involved with those.
Excellent. I want to get Trice in here real quick and ask a follow up there. So Trice, you're the chef in this equation. So how was your chef brain involved in the construction of the app and the concepting of the app, and what was your specific influence on helping it be something that other chefs can use? Not just, people that have a good math brain and that want to do this.
Recipes are big. Recipes is a big part of the app. It's simple. When you put in your servings, then you put in your milligrams, and it just pretty much tells you and calculates for you what you need for a recipe. And that's how is a part of the app. We just want it to be easy for chefs and home cooks to be able to use the app.
Excellent. My wife, Katie, is a home cook. She's really good. Shout out to my wife. She keeps our family fed. And she is real involved in a lot of different culinary online groups. So that's where she gets a lot of her recipes from. So I think, that's a big part of any culinary content is just engagement from the audience, right? And then making it something that people can talk about, can share. So.
Yes.
Very good, and we're going to make sure that she gets introduced to Dosed here soon. Tami, you had mentioned the business goals. This is definitely something that we want to talk about here, right? So in Into the Current, we focus on technology and innovation, creativity, and business, right? So it's all about the business end of this thing. I get the app. I get what it's for. I am way interested in learning more about what the business goals are for Dosed moving forward. Maybe kind of, if you don't mind breaking it down, kind of what the initial stage is And then where do you want to take it business-wise?
Absolutely. I mean, initially, we want to make sure that we roll it out and create awareness, and we want to be able to make sure people even realize that dose is available. Like I said, with doing the research, I realized that there wasn't a lot to offer at-home cannabis chefs and people who are learning to infuse with cannabis at home. So it gave, that's the main goal, is to create that awareness initially. So for the next 6 months, we launched on 4/20/2020. We did so in quarantine. So we were supposed to be in Colorado, but it's okay. It didn't slow us down any. But we're going to take the next 6 months and until October, and we're just going to try to create that awareness and do what we can to be able to make sure that people even know that dose exists. We're having some fantastic feedback. We're using the platforms, of course, Instagram is one of the our main platforms that we use in social media, and our feedback has been fantastic. We also use Facebook and Twitter, but what I really noticed is with Instagram that there's a lot more dialogue, there's a lot more interaction, if you will, with the audience. But what we also learned is that we can't advertise on Instagram and Facebook because we're cannabis related. So with that being said, we're having to do some kind of merchandise promotions, if you will, to be able to kind of create the buzz around dose and be able to get people to understand that it even exists. So we're doing some guerrilla marketing, if you will, and trying to do some kind of unique marketing techniques to be able to pull people in and kind of backdoor as far as exactly the information that we want to make sure that they are aware of.
Excellent. Are you talking to any other Georgia cannabis and CBD related companies here about partnering up? Or, obviously we can't do any live events right now, which is a huge bummer because all of us I know are big live event people, and Tami and I have been to live events together. How's that going? Are you reaching out? How's the reception been from other people in Georgia?
We haven't actually reached out to do any type of collaboration or any type of, we haven't connected with anyone yet. That's a part of our strategic plan as far as moving forward, is to create that awareness and allow people to know that dose exists, and to try to create those collaborations and those affiliates, if you will, just to be able to make sure that we have everything connected. I know that Trice is looking at a couple different hemp companies here in town in Georgia to be able to start working with, so she can get her product here locally instead of having to get it from Colorado and California. But as far as her events, I mean, during this time frame, it's been...
Well, yeah, during COVID, events have been awesome. Actually, edibles have been awesome. People are taking off with edibles. I've sold from cake pops to Rice Krispie treats to gummy bears, anything. We make everything. So people have really been enjoying edibles. And also the private events. People have their own dietary needs or whatever, but they still like to be dosed with CBD or THC. And the app is definitely a big part of being able to dose somebody, because you don't want to overdose anybody just because of the side effects of being, overdosed, too high, too paranoid or whatever. But using the app and explaining the app and giving out information about dosing and why it's good for you is also like a healing prospect behind it too. So people are really enjoying edibles and the events and the dinners and stuff like that.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that aspect of this. So a little background on me. I grew up on the West Coast in California. I was born in 1975. So in my early 20s, I actually voted to pass California's Proposition 215 to legalize the use of medical cannabis. This is back in 1996. So this was the...
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So this is the first medical marijuana ballot initiative passed at the state level in the history of our country. This is a big deal, and it was a big deal back then. There was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of support, mostly from young people and certainly kind of the usual suspects. But a lot has changed, right? So that was what, 24 years ago, and a lot hasn't changed. But specifically with cannabis and CBD, it seems like the laws are still murky. So it's illegal federally. It's different from state to state. You'd mentioned Denver, so I'm talking about the Denver connection a little bit. But what I really want to focus on right now is, what Trice had said. People, and this is a great part of this app, is that you want to help people on different levels, right? So there's the medical aspect of this, where people are using this to feel good because they have medical conditions, a variety of those. Some people are using it just to feel a little bit better throughout the day, and then some people are using it for purely recreational purposes, right? So just wanted to ask, how does the legality of all of this affect your ability to run this business and to be business people in this space? You know, Trice as a private chef, that's doing things to help people privately, and then, you know, Tami as a business owner with the app.
I mean, I'll take it first, but as far as from the app perspective, thankfully, you know, back in the Farm Bill was passed in December of 2018, and that allowed us to be able to, CBD is now legal in the United States. So that allows the app to at least have some legality to be used here in the United States. And it's also available in Canada, which is an illegal completely country. So the app, from that perspective, at least because CBD is legal, it can be used obviously for CBD and THC. And with some of the states, 11 states are now recreational and 33 states are medicinal. There's a lot of states that also it falls into, as far as it not necessarily being criminalized, as far as them using, you know, THC in their food and doing infusions. So from that perspective, the Farm Bill really did allow dose to be available, because I think without it, there could have been a lot of red tape, and the legality could have been it could have just stopped us in our tracks. But from a dining perspective,
well, as a chef, traveling chef is a new thing too, and I travel a lot, just not only in Miami but in California and Denver. But here in Georgia, it kind of put handcuffs on us as far as like the legal issues. We try to use mostly just CBD, and just spread the word about CBD and trying to stay in the legal manner of things in Georgia. It kind of sucks though, because it's a lot of people that still want to experience it, and then they have to travel to do it. But it is what it is right now. Hopefully one day we can make it happen in Georgia too.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely been a lot of progress in Georgia. And Kendrick and I, my partner Kendrick and I at Vertical River had talked with the guy who started the Georgia Hemp Company last summer, and Joe, and he's a good dude. Learned a lot just from talking to him for a couple of hours. And I think that's a big part of this, right? There's a huge education component, right? Because there's people think a lot of things that aren't necessarily true. They don't know the difference between THC and cannabis, and that being legal or not legal, and for who it's legal and not legal for, and then CBD. So with all those differences, from how they affect people medically, psychoactively, break that down for a little bit. Break that down for us for a little bit. Trice, I'd like to hear from you specifically, being a chef, and how do you approach that, and what's that process like with your clients as a chef?
Well, for me, I think CBD and THC are both healing factors. It's just that CBD, the psychoactive in THC is what some people don't like. You know, you can take it to another level if you overdose somebody, where the psychoactive can leave you paranoid. Versus even same thing with CBD. Too much CBD could leave you paranoid. It's just about using the app and knowing how to dose people correctly, and to actually be able to heal people through both ways. I honestly do think that both CBD and THC they have healing properties, but it's trying to explain and make people knowledgeable about what's healing and what's not.
And then Tami, I guess, how does the Dose app help people help people learn? Because I would think that there's this big educational component. Is that an important part of your business plan for the app?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the app just kind of highlights how little you need to infuse. I think that the misperception and conception that people have when they're infusing with cannabis, regardless if it's CBD or THC or CBG, which CBG is going to be another whole wave of the cannabinoid, but it's so important for them to be able to know that they just don't need very much. And instead of just dumping in a half a zip, a decarboxylated CBD or THC into their canna butter, that's not the move, because it's very difficult to be able to know exactly how much they're going to ingest. So it's important. I think that the app just allows people to understand how little that they need to be able for their infusions, and then also it also reduces cost. So I mean, that also is a huge component of the app too. It creates that awareness, it creates that education, and it allows people to be able to make, what they want to make at home, and also be able to reduce cost if they want to get involved.
So Trice, knowing that home cooking is one of the biggest, new, most popular activities during this pandemic, everybody's talking about sourdough, baking sourdough bread, and it's kind of a joke now. They're even talking about it in TV commercials. I saw an AT&T TV commercial recently that was joking about, this will help you make sourdough. What would you tell people that may be scared, possibly, or just hesitant? They don't know exactly what to do about, kind of starting and learning to infuse CBD or THC into their food?
I would honestly say not to be scared. It's just use the right dosing. Just don't just go overboard with everything. With food, it's hard to not know the right dosing with certain amount of food, especially when you're just cooking a gourmet meal. It's not something that you can just use the servers and use the app with. But just usually dose your oil and just go slow and low. And just take your time and moderate, and take it in moderate. It's just small, moderate doses.
What's a good recipe, like a first time recipe for people to get into this, right? Because like you said, you don't want to try to make this big gourmet meal and then do it wrong. What's a good entry level recipe to get started in culinary infusions?
I would say Rice Krispie Treats is so simple and so inexpensive, and also it teaches you the process of making canned butter. So that way you can use the app to go slow and low. You dose your butter as low as possible, and you take digest it in moderate increments, and you'll learn how to dose yourself. You'll know what your body is able to take. And that's where the app come in. You punch in some numbers, and then as simple as that. Now you know your dose, and you got it.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to trying the Rice Krispie Treats. Those are some of my favorite things. I'm a big brownies guy too. Brownies are one of my favorite things. I got a funny brownie story, but that's for another day. We know, I think most people know Denver's connection to cannabis, and them really being the first big city where I believe cannabis was legalized recreationally. The state of Colorado, there's a huge industry there, multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry now. So I think people are familiar with that. We're here in Atlanta. There's this saying that I kind of like: Atlanta influences everything, and then our city has a lot of flavor, right? Like we just do. We have a very diverse population here, a lot of flavor in Atlanta. How does the flavor of Atlanta influence, if it does or at all, your creation of Dosed and kind of the content that you're putting out and just the whole vibe of the brand?
Yes, we do have a lot of flavor in Atlanta. But also, like I said earlier, we have a lot of restrictions as well. So we just got to be careful about how we introduce our flavor. But other than that, our Southern influence and our content is what we normally, what reaches out to our customer base.
The biggest thing I think that we want to make sure that, again, that we're just because THC is not legal here in the South, right, in Georgia. We're trying to make sure that those recipes, those Southern flavor recipes, are also included in the app, and we make sure that it's highlighted because that's where we're from. That's where we're at.
Excellent, very good. I do want to talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic, and we've talked about it a little bit. And I mentioned earlier, certainly the bread baking. And there's some other, what I think most people would have considered mundane before all this started, when we were just running around, really kind of neck deep in just a fast-paced lifestyle for most of us. But baking bread, doing puzzles, I've heard that Target has been sold out of puzzles for a while. Going for walks, right, in the neighborhood. These are things that I think people mostly took for granted, but now they're a big deal. How can, if the people that are interested certainly in the baking and that are looking for something to do, how can Dosed help them, make infused cooking part of their pandemic pastime?
I mean, I think that honestly, it's everything's at their fingertips. Honestly, once you download the app, it's so simple and straightforward that if they have any desire to infuse with CBD or THC or CBG or any of the cannabinoids they want to, it's so simple. All they have to do is understand, just again, download the app. And then down below, there's all kinds of resources. First and foremost, it's going to teach you is what you where to start. And that's decarboxylation. And then once you decarboxylate, you can just make whatever recipes. And there's so many resources on the app to be able to allow people to be encouraged and I guess help them, to entice them to kind of just go ahead and jump in.
You just mentioned a term that I'm not familiar with, and I keep up with some of this stuff, decarboxylate. So, and again, I think that a big part of this, right, is like, people are scared of what they don't know about. And a word like that is, maybe it's not scary, but I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it was scary to us too. I have to be honest. I mean, when you first hear the word, when we sat in the class, that was the one that when as soon as he said decarboxylate, we were both like, well, it's not just us, it was the whole class. So I really think that it's just like you said, it's a term that some are not familiar with. But once you realize how important it is to decarboxylate your cannabis and why you need to decarboxylate it, then you understand it. So you want to explain why?
Yeah, first of all, you have to activate your THC, period, or it does not work in your edibles when you're infusing it into your food. And that word is a little bit intimidating. And I mean, first time in class, she was like, sound it out, take it slow and low, just like we do with our edibles. So, but yeah, that decarboxylation is a critical process in getting your edibles, you know what I'm saying, being able to dose yourself. So.
Okay. What, you talked about a good first recipe for people getting into this being the Rice Krispie treats, but what's y'all's favorite recipe since the COVID-19 pandemic hit us, and why?
I made a awesome CBD olive oil that I mixed with a pear vinaigrette, and I put it on salad. So I dose myself every day with some CBD at lunch, and again at dinner if I need it. But the great thing is, obviously, I'm trying to do my very best as far as not intake as much baked goods as I kind of want to. So I went after the salad dressing, and it's been awesome. But that was one of the things that I've enjoyed to be able to do. I had the time to do. Being home, but Trice has been going crazy in the kitchen.
First off, I'm a fat kid, so I make everything. I love to infuse everything, so I can't even sit here and it'll be a list so long you'll get bored. But one of my real favorite things to do is like wing sauces. I love hot wings. I love jerk wings. Wings are they're like my thing. So I like to infuse oils. I infuse honey to toss in my wing sauces, even my barbecue sauce. So that's a new thing for me, which I'm actually trying to start a line of sauces to infuse sauces to put out there for the world to try.
I like wings too a lot, so I'm looking forward to trying some of those real soon. Yes. The wing is the thing, right?
Yes, it's the new thing.
Yeah, for sure, for real. Having launched, so you said you launched on 4/20/2020, in the middle, really in the kind of the middle of this pandemic, for at least for the United States. What has that taught you as a business owner, launching a startup in these conditions, and and how has that affected the launch of the company?
Well, again, I'm just thankful that it's a digital platform, right? And digital, that's where it's at right now. It's the only thing that we really have, right? So everyone's staying connected through digital ways, spending more time on their phones, spending more time with social media, like you said, spending more time in the kitchen. So it really happened in a way that was good for Dosed. Because again, it's a digital platform. If I was trying to open a brick and mortar, it would have been, disastrous. It would have been, a different situation. But with Dosed being a digital platform, it did allow it to get out into the public and into the world, I think, a little bit faster because people had more time. That's what I kind of see.
As a private chef, nothing really slowed down for me, but the app was also helpful in my events and stuff like that. It helped me bring knowledge to people, and they can have something actually to reference. So it actually helped boost my business a little bit more. So I'm grateful. The only thing I'm not grateful for is I didn't get to go to 420.
We were supposed to be in Colorado.
Promoted him in Colorado, which kind of hurt us a little bit. Chef Royalty is really big, and he's the reason why I found my passion with cooking and cannabis and stuff like that. So that was kind of a bummer for me, but I'm planning on going back out there as soon as I can.
Excellent. Yeah, I've spent some good time in Denver myself. It's a great city. What we had talked about earlier, you had mentioned Instagram being a big channel for you, and I think it's a big channel for most businesses right now. I know there's over 1 billion people using the platform worldwide, and I think Facebook combined with Instagram and WhatsApp, they've got about 3 billion people worldwide using those 3 platforms, which is incredible. If you think about it, it's almost half of the world's population. What other social and digital media channels do you have kind of lined up as you grow the brand outside of Instagram, and how are you going to leverage those channels?
Good question. I mean, we're kind of fumbling our way through, to be honest with you, as far as we have, of course, we're, like I said, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, have the doseapp.com, which most of our content is there. Trice is now, she just started a YouTube page, and we're going to start to make sure all of the videos through all the videos for Dose, how to decarboxylate, recipes. Every time that she does another recipe, we're going to try to make sure that we have very short, really concise videos to be able to help people, again, encourage people to try it at home and see how easy it is, and then also have an opportunity to get to know Trice a little bit. So if they want a private event, they know how to get a hold of her.
Yeah, we are huge fans, and also YouTube is a big part of our business here. And Kendrick, my partner, is a certified YouTube channel growth strategist. It's a big, long title, but it means he's really smart when it comes to YouTube. So definitely leverage YouTube going forward, and looking forward to seeing more of those videos with Trice about Infusion and about the Dose app and all the good things you guys are bringing to market. What do you think, what near-term impacts will the COVID-19 pandemic have specifically on the cannabis industry, do you think?
Well, so far, I mean, from what we see, that the cannabis industry has been thriving since the pandemic, mainly because they considered the dispensaries essential. Mm-hmm. And so since they're considered essential, the majority have done okay. However, I think that if the dispensaries can stay open, they're going to do well. I think that's going to be the key. Just so long as the customers can be able to get what they need and what they want, I feel like the dispensaries and the cannabis industry is going to continue to thrive, especially while people are at home and also having the opportunity to really be able to see how CBD can help, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities and how it can help with anxiety and depression, and there's so many ailments that are coming out, what people are kind of realizing and it's being highlighted during this pandemic that cannabis can help with. So I feel it's actually going to help. I don't really think it's going to reduce growth in the cannabis space.
It's definitely essential.
Hey, food and nourishment is essential, right? For all of us. And so, and I think, this is a huge part, especially on the CBD side for now. And then growing into the THC. Let's, we're all about, Into the Current's all about trying to be forward thinking, right? Trying to see business opportunities as they approach. So when you look into the current and saying that the industry is thriving right now and that the pandemic's probably helping it, because a lot of people are spending time at home and they don't have to go in the office, right? So there's probably some leeway there to make themselves feel good. What, as business owners and operators and promoters, what are you guys doing now to capitalize on the opportunities you're seeing?
Well, as far as for me, because I cook and I have my own little product line of edibles and stuff like that. Just promoting, just online. Online right now is everything. Everybody is constantly on their phone, like Tami said, and that's kind of like the best way for me to be able to reach out to so many different people.
What I've noticed is that Trice, her deliveries, before the pandemic, it wasn't like anybody really cared to have anything delivered, right? Yeah. It was either you shipped it or they just didn't even really order. So delivery seemed like it was almost a kind of like a selling point, if you will, as far as from her perspective here in town. So there's a lot of people who still don't know how to be able to work with cannabis or infuse with cannabis, but it seems like her business has picked up quite a bit, and especially in that, even in the delivery of cannabis, or even private event meals, or whatever it is.
So beyond delivery, and then certainly people using the app, as more people use the app, as state laws change, which my looking into the current is telling me that, since I voted on Prop 215 back in 1996, that the tide's coming, right? So it's been, the river's been flowing this way for a long time.
I also feel, I know where you're going with it. I wanted to say that I feel, we've been talking about this, we are hopeful that in the next 10 years it's nationally legal. So that is into the current, like if I look forward, that is really what I see within the next 10 years, hopefully sooner, completely legal in the United States, and we'll be able to infuse, everyone will be able to infuse whatever cannabinoid that they want, and be able to produce products and ship products all over the country.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible too, right? Because this opens up all sorts of new economic opportunities for people that are chefs, like Trice, people that want to be chefs. So there's the whole supply chain side of this thing, right? There's digital app developers. So you hired an app developer, right? So there's an economic engine behind this, and that everybody's always talking about job creation, regardless of political affiliation. That's kind of what makes our whole country go. Let's focus on the state of Georgia for a second, since we're here. We're in Atlanta. What do you see economic opportunities being in the next couple of years here in the state of Georgia? And then I guess I would also ask, since you two are kind of pioneers in the space in your own rights, how can people get involved in this, in this industry here in Georgia? Like, what are some ways that they can go about doing that? Beyond thinking up some great idea for this cool app that you did, like how can they get involved?
I feel like if you have an idea, again, if you're interested in the cannabis space and you're either a cannabis, connoisseur or an advocate, you're interested, there are so many opportunities. think about it. Here in Atlanta, we can see what happened in Colorado and in Oregon and in California and in Nevada. We know all of those type of jobs or opportunities are going to be coming our way. So, dispensaries, every single thing in the cannabis space, we're going to have an opportunity to be able to do here in Georgia from the ground up. So I think that anyone who is interested just needs to take a look at what has already been done and find out whatever they're interested in. And again, just either make it the best that they ever can here in the Southeast, or tweak it a little bit and make it even better. But I feel like there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot to learn from what's already been done.
And as a chef, there's a lot of opportunity, like Infusions to Go or the next restaurant in Atlanta. As soon as a restaurant comes to Atlanta where you can have infused meals, it's over. Just like anything else that comes to Atlanta, we take it and we make it our staple. So I can't wait to see what happens when the first restaurant gets here. And hopefully I have it.
Absolutely. I would like to come check that out. What would you both tell people at the state government level, from a business standpoint, about, promoting the growth of this industry and how it's going to help our state economically and even people in our state?
I really do believe they could just take a look at what's happening in Colorado and California and some of the states where it's legal. I feel like Georgia's missing the boat. I think that we know that we're in the Bible Belt and we're kind of one of the most conservative states in the Southeast, unfortunately. And it's going to take a lot to get some people to really open up their eyes. But I think economically might be the trick, right? So I feel that there is a lot of disparity here in Georgia, and this could certainly help the economy in Georgia, and not only just in Georgia, but in the entire Southeast. But I think that we just need to continue to advocate for legalizing marijuana and THC. Again, recreationally would be nice.
It would be.
In Georgia, I know that they've done some things medicinally, but there's too many limitations. It's not even really anything to speak of. So we have a lot of work to do, and I think that we need to continually just make sure our voice is heard.
And honestly, I think it would actually help some of the poverty, some of the mental issues that homeless people have, just by being able to have the extra money to be able to treat these people and house these people. So it's a lot of good things that could possibly come out of having the extra money.
Now, I think there's another aspect that I want to talk with y'all a little bit about. We're talking about Denver, Colorado, we're talking about California, which, is mostly thought of as big cities, although I grew up there, so I understand that once you get out of those big cities, there's rural areas in California. Everybody thinks it's the beach. It's not. And we're talking about Atlanta. But I saw recently that there are hemp farms that are starting now in Alabama. Alabama is probably considered to be, and probably is, even more conservative state than Georgia, and certainly a more rural state than Georgia. They don't have a city the size of Atlanta. So I think a lot of people, when they think about this, they think this is an urban issue. It's an urban pastime, right? That people in cities are using THC and CBD, and there's chefs and restaurants and shops, right? So, but there's this opportunity for the rural community as farmers to have a really valuable crop, right? Whether it be hemp or even someday potentially cannabis. What would you say to the folks in the rural communities about using this to enhance their economic, future?
I mean, again, I think that it take the opportunity and run with it. I mean, these farmers know how hard it is to, continue to turn a profit on their crops. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine that actually has a farm here in Georgia, and he considered it. And from what I understand, and again, I think that I'm not sure, but I want to say that we are also here in Georgia should be having some hemp farms. I want to say that those licenses are going to start to go out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I've heard that there are some licenses. When we talked to Joe at Georgia Hemp Company back in the summer, he talked a little bit about that. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for people to grow this crop organically, right? And to help rural communities, which definitely need the help in a big state like ours that has, a ton of agricultural land. There are some questions that we like to just kind of ask everybody, right? We try to be specific with our guests, but there are some questions we want to kind of have everybody answer, just to see where people's heads are at. So I want to ask y'all some of those now, and I'll let you both answer. And let me ask the question, and I'll let you both answer. But Tami, I know you're a mother, so maybe this influences this, and a wife and a sister, and you have a big family. Trice, I don't know about you as much personally, but and then certainly they've got a lot of crazy stuff going on in our country right now, right? So what is keeping y'all up at night?
Oh man.
Oh.
Man. a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. When you're running a business and just you think about everything. Actually, this interview kept me up all night last night. So
I'm sorry about that.
I was like, I was so excited, but then I was so nervous too. Just so first real big interview, but mostly just succeeding. Just taking stuff to the next level. Where am I going to go? Where do I see myself? That's the type of things I think about.
Some of the things that keep me up at night, right now is, again, the app somewhat consuming of, just consuming my time, just making sure, thinking through, making sure that everything is, again, it's as good as it possibly can be at this point. But I think for me, too, is just really making sure that I understand the cannabis community as much as I possibly can, because I don't really have a lot of experience as far as time in that space. So that's what kind of keeps me up at night, is spending a lot of time learning more and more about, like you said, legalities, regulations, what's happening in different states, where are we at, what can I do to make an impact, and what can I do to make change. And that's just, from a business perspective, what keeps me up at night. But obviously, personally, all of the horrific things that's happening, with the brutality and the racism is just absolutely not acceptable. And then that's obviously what keeps me up at night. And I would love to see there to be a resolve.
Me too, for sure. Yeah, last night was a bad one. This morning's pretty rough. on that with what's going on in a lot of different parts of our country, and that is keeping me up at night too. So it's bumming me out, and it's serious. So I appreciate you mentioning that. We are big fans here of content, right? That's what Vertical River is all about, and we're also fans of kind of just sharpening our swords, right? Wherever we can, whenever we can, and we do a lot of that through consuming content, right? A lot of educational content. What are y'all consuming right now from a content standpoint, knowing that a lot of people are looking for different voices to educate themselves on a lot of different issues? What are y'all on right now?
Well, most of my content is food. My palate is different from a lot of chefs. A lot of people look for different recipes or different cooking techniques, and that's pretty much most of my content right now. And just explaining to people how to infuse different things, normal than just your normal everyday baked items, brownies, cookies, Rice Krispie treats. It's more than just that. Food is more than just that, and just explaining the nutritional facts behind everything that I like to cook.
Are there any particular chefs that you like to follow and that are putting out good content that you'd recommend other people get hip to?
Definitely Anthony Bourdain, definitely Andrew Zimmern. I know there's some, Bobby Flay is one of my favorites as well. But also Andrew Drummer. She just opened the first restaurant in California for infusion. So and she's like really, really big right now. So that's one of my really, I've been really following her close. So really admire her a lot.
What about you, Tami?
Well, I mean, again, I'm very busy, but as far as consuming, I have been focusing on time management more. So one of the things that I have been focusing on is of course, I'm sure that you're familiar with a book called 4-Hour Workweek. I have not obtained that goal of getting there, but I am trying to make sure that my time management is spot on, and that I'm able to make sure that I get everything done in a timely fashion, especially from working from home. I think everybody understands that time management is critical, but when you have to be doing it in your own space with your family around at all times, it's super important to understand how you need to be you need to think about it. It needs to be deliberate.
Yeah, time management's huge, especially for people that have kids in the house too, right? Which I know that you've got a couple, and I've got a couple younger ones, and if you've got dogs too, which I think y'all do, and then I've got maybe not Trice, but time management's always been a tough one for me. So send any good tips my way, please. Hey, one of the things that we like to try to do here with folks is use the time machine. And if you could go, both of you, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what business advice would you give your younger self?
I would say yes to every opportunity. Network as much as you can. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your greatness. And also, no responsibility in your business should be handed down. You should be able to do every aspect of your business.
What about you, Tami?
For me, I think if I could go back, I think the biggest thing is just realizing that when you don't know something, don't try to become an expert overnight. It's okay to reach out to other people and allow them to be the expert in their space. That's if I could go back. I mean, again, I certainly have enjoyed being able to learn more and more about different aspects of different parts of the business. But I think that there's a lot of wasted time that it certainly could have been more beneficial if I just would have more quickly reached out to someone who was an expert in that field.
Yeah, we're big advocates of that, certainly. And I think one of the things that we've learned since we launched the company, and even really started talking about before we launched the company, was the value of strategic alliances, right? And so it's awesome for me to just be kind of on the outside of this and looking at the two of you. And I think that really drives home the point that you just talked about, right, Tami, that you're not a chef. But you're a business person. And Trice, I'm not saying you're not a business person, but you're a chef first and foremost and a business person. So I think it's awesome that y'all were able to team up, because you seem like a good team to me.
Yep. Thanks.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right. I'm a big believer in that myself. We at Vertical River, part of our company ethos is environmental conservation and trying to give back to community groups, nonprofits. So we work with some community nonprofit groups here in Atlanta, like the South Face Institute's a great organization. And then I think Tami might know I'm a big fisherman, so I'm really into water conservation for fishing, and then also just to have clean drinking water, right, which we all need, and that's huge for food too, right, Trice? You need to have clean water to put in your food to cook with. How do y'all handle that? Are there some environmental conservation groups that you support, or some nonprofit groups that you support that are, maybe tied into the culinary space? Can you tell us about that a little bit?
We have one that actually is more marijuana that we've been focusing on, and that was one of the things that we've been speaking about as far as how important it is for us to be able to align ourselves with some of the nonprofit organizations. But one of the ones that we looked at that we're starting to align with is it's the Equity First Alliance, which is basically an organization that not only helps those that are to decriminalize marijuana in different states, but also to expunge the records of those who have marijuana-related charges. We feel it's really important to, again, anybody that has a criminal record that's marijuana-related or cannabis-related, it would certainly be nice for them to be able to not have that on their record and not hold them back from being able to move forward, whatever that looks like for them. So the Equity First Alliance is an organization that we feel is important to be able to support, because we know that they support the cannabis community and they support those who unfortunately have been received a charge, if you will, that has nothing to do with cannabis.
Excellent. Any culinary or food groups that you want to give a shout out to, Trice?
The Giving Kitchen is one of the biggest ones in Atlanta right now. I try to go and help the communities whenever they do an event. But I can respect them as far as like them just taking care of the communities. The community of Atlanta. And it's just big for me. So I always make sure I try to give back. Excellent.
Yeah, we've supported the Atlanta Community Food Bank recently too. So another great organization too here in the city to help feed people. Is there anything we didn't cover today? Anything that y'all want to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
No, but I thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you for all the great questions. We appreciate just having the opportunity to be able to share our story and make more people aware, of course, of Dosed and of
Trice.
Thank you very much for telling the story. It's an awesome story. It's a story that I want to have more engagement with, and when we're able to get together, right, again, and sit down and break bread, definitely want to eat some food with y'all.
Time for an infused meal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, believe me. This is definitely on the top of my short list, is to break bread with y'all. Well, tell the folks out there that are watching this how they can get connected and keep up with Dosed, and then also with Chef Trice.
Doseapp.com is our website. Dosed App on Instagram. Let's see, Dosed and Dosed App on Facebook. Dosed App on Twitter. And Trice.
Chef Trice. Not Chef Trice, I'm sorry. Dreadhead187 on Instagram, Sauced International on Instagram, saucedinternational.com, Jarred International
on Instagram.
And all that's tied into my website, saucedinternational.com. Check it out.
Love the name Sauce too.
You got to get some sauce.
Got to have the sauce of the boss, right? You got to have the sauce. So, hey, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. Y'all are definitely in the current, and so thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us.
Have a good day. Peace.
Hey, that was Tami and Chef Trice from Dosed and also Sauced International joining us today on Into the Current. Want to give them huge thanks. Really appreciate you joining us and having a great conversation about cannabis infused cooking. So something I definitely want to learn more about. Make sure you hit them up online at the different channels they had mentioned. In our effort to stay current on trends and technologies in marketing and business, we talk to interesting people like Tami and Trice who are doing cool things like building an app and cooking culinary infused cannabis meals. If that's something you're into as well, please follow Vertical River on social media, especially YouTube and LinkedIn. to find out when we release more episodes of Into the Current. If you like this, please share it with your friends and your network, and stay tuned for more Into the Current.